Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you Aether Raids in November 2018. Yeah, that is what we came from, like this. This video is going to talk about basically looking back at how far we've come in the strategic Aether Raids Fire Emblem Heroes metagame. Enjoy!
Let the lesson begin.
What's up guys, Akariss here, bringing you another Fire Emblem Heroes video. Today's video is going to talk about basically Aether Raids in like a retrospective. So I went through a lot of time to try to find some really old screenshots dating back all the way here to like November 2018. So there's a bunch of them here that I'll show off with you guys, and I'll just talk about it. Think of this as like a, I don't know, thoughts video or impressions, or maybe if you didn't live in the meta or you weren't playing Aether Raids at this time, then maybe it's enlightening or just for fun, whatever. Take from this video what you will. It's more of a like, you know, looking back at how things have changed in the game and how far we've come, or maybe for some, how far we've regressed. Your opinion may be different on that sort of thing. Before we begin, I wanted to let you guys know about some changes that I am, not changes, but like things to look forward to. So if you, first of all, if you like the content, thumbs up, smash like button, sub if you haven't already. Check out other links in the description below, such as my Instagram and Patreon. And about Patreon, so I've initiated a sort of thing going forward where I'm going to be incorporating a should you poll kind of, or will you poll. I'm going to call it like do you plan to poll, will you poll, where you guys in the community basically vote in the polls as we get our banner previews and say, yeah, I'm going to poll, I'm going to use all my orbs, I'm going to just use my tickets, I'm going to spark something, or I'm going to skip. Something like that as a poll, and anyone is invited to basically vote on this. You don't have to be Patreon subbed. If you do though, that really does help the content and I really appreciate it. But I want you guys to know that as soon as we get banner previews going forward, I'm going to be posting polls on my Patreon, and I'm going to be using those polls and the comments in those Patreon posts to basically show you guys the impression of the community, like whether you guys are planning to poll or not. So I feel like that's some pretty good data to back up like people planning to skip or people planning to poll. Look forward to this actually in the upcoming CYL5 video where I do my impressions. I'm going to tie that in as well with like a follow-up video on, you know, how the community also plans to poll or not poll at all or skip or whatever. That's something exciting. I'm also doing a hero review on like people's builds, so PvE and Aether Raids or Arena, or just like showcasing your favorite units. So again, people who are on Patreon that are supporters, I'm planning to basically talk about their units in an upcoming video. So I encourage you guys, if you want to like join in on this stuff or support the content, then you can directly be involved with me and the community and how we present our thoughts on this matter. Thank you guys. With that being said, let's actually talk about Aether Raids, shall we? The meta from where we've come and where we are now. So this screenshot here, as you can see, dated November 2018, is literally one of my first few matches in Aether Raids. I think this is like the, I don't know, it's really early in the Aether Raids meta. Like I'm talking like under 2000 lift kind of thing, where we had literally 4 units on offense and defense, and there was no meta. There literally wasn't a meta. There also wasn't an escape ladder, and you weren't losing lift on defense back then. So there's a lot of like interesting things. I opted for a flyer, mostly flyer comps, as you'll soon see through some of the other screenshots, and how I really leaned on the mobility of flyers, which really did help kind of create that success. So literally not a month after like Aether Raids being released and Mythics in December, we basically got our first glimpse of metagame in Aether Raids. And this is like one of the most oppressive defense teams of that time, and even by those standards, I'd say this team was extremely difficult to deal with at at that time to the caliber of like Legendary Sigurd and like not of today's defenses. Like this defense was harder to deal with at that time than I think even these defenses of Legendary Sigurd, not Pathfinders, whatever, of today. And I'll tell you why. Because you might like look at this and be like, are you kidding me? Like this looks like not that hard. Okay, so first of all, there was no Null Sea Disrupt at this time, so Fire Sweep was uncounterable. It's kind of like saves in some aspect, although saves have soft counters, but basically there was no counterplay to Fire Sweep. Another one was, as you can notice here, the unbreakable blocks of Spring Breeze, yes, so you had very limited mobility options in trying to get in to opponents. On top of that, there was no such thing as Peony. So you were forced for optimized scoring to use 2 airs. That was it. You could only use air, and you had to use 2. So that meant you had 2 airs, a bonus unit who wasn't air potentially, although I think it was, or no, it wasn't. I don't remember exactly, but you basically had your 2 airs, a bonus unit, and then 2 free slots. There was no 6 slot. So in this case, as you can see, I had my carry, which was Cecilia, and my dancer, which was Azura. Now, it was almost impossible to do hidden runs on this because you just couldn't like get out of danger for trying to snipe something with this many dancers. So all those units had like Wings of Mercy, so you'd have dancers following up. The cabs had some really good range, and in general, you had some crazy strong nukes. This isn't even like the strongest of those teams because we had stuff like Dancing Micaiah at the time with armor and cavalry effectiveness. We had, I don't know, like this was like very difficult to beat. And if you check out some of my older videos, you'll see exactly where this is coming from. So again, one of those like early AR metas where there wasn't counterplay, and you basically used your 1 of 3 escape ladder charges at that time if you couldn't get past this. Yep. Those were the days, folks. There also wasn't any double up, so you had to play 16 games in a week, not 8 of double up. 3 ladder charges, 16 games. Just to give you some perspective on exactly how much harder it might have been for most people at that time. And it's even comparable to like what we have now if some people are like, oh my god, like all this stuff is really hard. But you do have 6 ladder charges and you can double up 8 of those games. So you have far more leeway for error nowadays than you did back then, especially if you ran into teams like this. Oh boy. All right. Next up is actually my defense, which this is like one of my first few iterations of my defense. And to be honest, it sucks. Like totally sucks. I think this was a rally trap or it had chase AI. Basically like on a no assist Reinhardt that would likely get danced and snipe something. I think that's how I designed this back then. And then I just put like bonus units on the team because I felt like I really could take advantage of bonus stats. So you see here, I think I had Anna, and bonus Zephiel. I think, maybe. Probably, yeah. There were no defense mythics at this time. So you're basically just using good units on defense. This isn't exactly like good units on defense, and I had pretty limited options at this time. I don't even think my Reinhardt was like plus 10 at this time. So you see like my really early iteration of defense was not that optimized at all. But yeah, it was really early. This was like a month or 2 into the meta. So again, very fun and experimental. You'd run into some sort of teams like this a lot. So yeah, not really much to say. I think this is actually Brotel. Pretty sure this is another YouTuber, like way back when, who played into me and did win against the team, obviously. So shoutouts to him. All right. Then we have February 2019, a little bit more into it, learning what works and what doesn't. And I started using, or I was actually using it for quite a while, but I think I really doubled down on the idea of colorless flyer tanks, IOT Shield, Hot Springs Camilla, and Air at this time, because Air was bonus a lot of the time, so you could really take advantage of those bonus stats, whereas Camilla could benefit from Mythic Blessings at that time, so it was like 2 Airs, which gave you 10 resistance and 10 HP, which was really good at that time. So like that stat spread, like at that time, was really good, especially against casters and such. So it was pretty good. This isn't a Vantage strat, as you might think. I just didn't have better B slots. There was Mystic Boost, but you didn't want to fodder an air at that time. That was literally the only way to get it. And I had a lot of fun with that tanking strat. I think in the next screenshot you'll see, yeah. Or I believe this is my defense. Yeah, this is my defense. So this is like the early iterations of Fireball. And as you can see, Volter is there. Yep. But you see, like, my team comp here, 2 airs, Camilla, Dancer, Aversa. And this used the ability to just stack a bunch of ward flyers and create a super tank out of 1 unit. And if you positioned properly against a lot of teams, you'd end up with like 40-50 defenses, 60 res, such. You just like wouldn't take damage. It was really very comfortable to use against a lot of teams. There was no pulse smoke at this time either, might I remind you. If you were playing at this time, that still wasn't in the game. And there was just no, like, there wasn't really good counterplay to infantry pulse teams at this time either, besides just getting a lot of bulk or making good snipes. Next up is one of my best rankings in Astra season. I don't think this is not perfect, but almost perfect. I think this was like minus 80 score off of a perfect score in March 2019, where there was no Naga. So early Astra season had nothing, no mythics. At least almost like a year, I think. Yeah, it was like almost a year of AR in Astra season with no mythic at all. We had Duma, which was like an anima mythic, but Duma was kind of rolled over because you could bring anything in Astra season and score as much as everyone else. There was no Astra mythics, so you could literally bring whatever you want, and therefore dealing with like Duma was a joke because you could literally just bring air, and that was fine. She had Mystic Boost and Sparkling Boost and basically healing like everything. You just didn't really care that Duma existed. He definitely prevented you lift loss, but it came at a cost of being terrible, and the actual, like as a unit, and the actual lift loss reduction system wasn't optimized much at that time. Like I think it didn't even reduce your lift by all that much initially. So you could really just run whatever on Anima season. It didn't have to be defense mythic oriented, and it has shifted towards that for sure with updates. But yeah, this is some of the early rankings that I was able to pull off in Astra season. One of the best in March 2019, before Naga was a thing, and like generally before people started really stacking up mythics, and AR in general got easier. It wasn't easy up until I think Peony. That's when I feel it really got easier, and you'll see that in the screenshots as we go through this. So this is April 2019, and as I said, being able to like stack the mythics just really lended itself well to this sort of play style, where as you can see in the screenshot right here, air is like fully buffed by Legendary Zor, running a Barb, Shuriken, Noontime build, Mystic Boost providing additional healing, IO Shield up there, and this is like a full infantry pulse team. And I was able to put Camilla and Race in within 2 spaces, of Aversa debuffing from afar, and you just end up with so much stats that you could outright tank these sort of teams. So I think this was bonus air, and you can see this was like really effective back then because there was no pulse smoke, so you had 2 ways of dealing with these teams. I don't think there was disarm trap either, so making snipes was really hard. You needed to basically tank everything, or try to make snipes if the team allowed you. It was a very different meta at that time. It definitely was pretty hard. Don't ask me why I don't have 2 mythics here. I don't know why there's not 2 airs in this particular comp. That's really weird. I don't know what the case is there, and I don't remember ever trying to like this must be Astra season. Yes. This was probably okay, so as I just mentioned, guys, in Astra season you could run whatever you want. So that's exactly what this is. This is literally me using air in Astra season, and she was bonus, with a bunch of units of whatever I wanted, which in this case was literally just Racing for healing and support, and Azura for buffs, and Aversa for long range debuffs. So you can see like how this has definitely changed quite a bit. Yeah, some of the strategies here are still applicable. As you can see, there's like a lane 2 catapult there, which could have very well been placed there to try to deal with bolt towers in that lane from hitting like Bike and then sniping like Legault or something like that. But as you like, it's whatever. Okay, and next up is one of my best rankings in light season of July 2019. So this is like almost 2 years ago. This was before Peony. So people, to get high rankings here, you essentially needed triple air. 3 airs merged up highly to get up high in ranking. So that was like almost no one. And if you did run that, it was extremely hard to rank because that was such a gimp comp. Like you were really struggling because you essentially had only one free slot. You had your 3 airs, your 1 bonus, and your 1 flex unit. And by restricting your comp that much, obviously that was really hard to play into some of the defense teams that you've already seen. So in this case, I was running double air, fairly merged-ish. I think it was only like 11 merges, right? And I was able to rank pretty well with a perfect season, which is what you'll see here, getting front page just with that. Before Peony made it easier, before we had double up, and before people really accrued those merges in general. This is the last time I think I was like front page at the end of the season. Yeah. Since for a long time, because like AR was a lot easier, is a lot easier now than it was back then. Next up is probably the final version of Fireball before I benched it. So you'll know where this is going, but this was essentially the last iteration of Fireball before it basically hit the graveyard for me. And I have to give it its credit. I have to appreciate it for what it was. It did me a lot of good, and nowadays you can kind of revive the spirit of Fireball by using Wedding Catria, because she essentially creates fireballs by giving everyone orders and even brave effects. So you kind of have that spirit of Fireball through Wedding Catria if you really wanted that that feeling back. I don't have Wedding Catria, but it'd be pretty interesting to see, because now you can do it. You don't need flyers. You just do whatever units you want. You can still use rally traps and really create your old school Fireball, which now is whatever. It's not even a Fireball. So before we switched it over, as you can see, the first iteration of Cavline, which was on Mountains and on the debut of Naga. So finally we had an Astro Mythic, and I said, okay, I'm going to use that Astro Mythic to create a new defense team. So I did. And the good thing about Naga on defense is actually she had Divine Fang and stuff. People were using stuff like Noe at this time. So you could basically give like in this case, Gunthra and Luis dragon effectiveness on a Cavline, which covered 5 lanes, and people still used a lot of buildings, and still do actually, and you could essentially snipe a lot of key units or create some insane pressure. And yeah, it was basically anti-meta at that time. It's more meta now, but it definitely was anti-meta at the time, and definitely had me a lot of perfect defense weeks, because most players couldn't really deal with that all that much. As you can see by the Golden Thrones, I think we were only in 31 weeks of Aether Raids at this time. So, and compared to like the previous one, yeah, so at the same time here, you'll see 31 weeks. It was fun to watch some of this stuff, for sure. Okay, honestly, there's going to be a little bit of a gap here in 2020, because 2020 was like Peony time. So as soon as Peony kind of was released for Book 4, AR in general became a lot easier. So I think we had double up, we had more ladder charges, and we had a dancer that definitely opened up team comp flexibility, which is both a good and bad thing. A good thing is, of course, like, you know, AR isn't going to be as difficult. It's going to be easier to play, and that's good for most of the player base. But it also means in terms of like ranking, and it gets harder, it gets more competitive, and it becomes more of like a mythic merge, like race, whoever has more, if like the skill level gap, you know, it gets shortened. So yeah, 2020 in general, there's not really much footage or screenshots for me to show off or talk about here, because honestly, a lot of AR gameplay at this point became much easier and much faster to play through, and like this particular screenshot, I think, is basically using mostly Chronia in the first half of 2020, and then as soon as they got the Vector refine, it was like Vector for the latter half of 2020. So I don't need to show you any Vector screenshots. I definitely don't need to show you most of the screenshots of Chronia in the beginning of 2020, because that's basically what it was as the meta shifted from like Infantry Pulse into more bulkier teams and more aggressive stuff, where Chronia and Vantage in general just kind of dwindled out. But yeah, you'll see like in this particular screenshot, Chronia, because of the Dancer, is able to make key snipes, get healing towers. I think Disarm Trap was even a thing at this time, and then just sweep the team. So different meta, different time. Still, I can't like not appreciate it. And finally, 2021, where we are now. 6 units, 7 on defense, safe defense. It's a new time, folks. So this and that, you see, even Far Save, Pathfinder, all the fun mechanics here, as you can see from 2021. Honestly, overall, I don't think, I think I look fondly in the current meta. Like, I actually like where we are right now in Aether Raids. I like the balance in difficulty and ease, meaning like the amount of ladder charges and double up has kind of been balanced out by the new mechanics like Pathfinder and Far Save, and just in general 7th unit and AI. Just, you know, these new mechanics making it more difficult or requiring more thought definitely makes me appreciate the current AR meta. But looking back, like pre-Peony, it definitely was very hard to play AR as well, because you just had more restrictive team comps and you had to really prepare and think out the box for many matches to succeed at that time, because you just didn't have that leeway to succeed. Less counterplay, no pulse smokes, no disarm traps, no null C's in really early AR meta, and 3, you know, just in general 16 matches, 3 ladder. It's just, you know, that time was also quite hard. And if I had to pick, I'm not even sure which one I would say is easier to play, because if I'm to really think about it, probably right now is easier than then. But before like the whole 6th, 7th unit such, it was pretty easy to play AR. And I'm glad that they have the ladder charges. I'm glad that a lot of you guys probably, I hope you enjoy the game for what it is in the strategic element, because at the end of the day, it is a strategy game, and being able to use your favorite characters that you've invested hard into at their maximum potential is very fulfilling, and it is for me even to this day. Being able to use Hector, Elwood, Lynn, Cecilia, just using all these Fire Emblem characters in their max potential is super satisfying. And then when I go back and play those Fire Emblem games, I can actually fondly look at the times and like things I've done in Heroes where I was like, yeah, like I remember, you know, using them this way to succeed. That's a very fine feeling for me. Guys, let me know what you think in the comments below. You know, how long did you start playing, like how long ago did you start playing AR or Fire Emblem Heroes in general? Maybe I'll go and do another video on Arena as well. If you made it this far of the video, I do appreciate it. I mean, you know, thumbs up and sub if you haven't. That's really cool that you've made it this far. And if you think I missed anything, just let me know in the comments below. Or just your opinion, it's fine. I'd love to read on your perspective on this sort of thing. Yeah, that's it for me, guys. Thank you for watching. Much love. Peace.
It's over.